Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Ammar, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to have Christoph von Dühren, a seasoned sales strategist and the founder of GrowthBase, aka Crack1M.io, a consultancy dedicated to helping B2B FinTech and SaaS startups scale their revenue and achieve sustainable growth. With a background in building and optimizing sales engines, Christoph has been instrumental in guiding startups from initial traction to significant revenue milestones.
Well,
Christoph,
thank you very much for the introduction. Happy to be here.
happy to have you. I'm excited to dive in. I always like to start from the
Likewise.
beginning. So can you take us back to before you started your company, Crack1M? What were you doing at the time? And then what was really the motivation behind starting the company?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think I always wanted to start my own business, right? But I never really found the right angle to approach. So I've been working in consulting, specifically for tech consulting or technically, sorry, IT consulting for banks. So I did that for a while, and then I always felt, oh no, it's too theoretical for me. So I went on to the startup side, and then I started building sales teams essentially, right? So I was
Mm.
hired for a fintech to build up a sales team as the first employee. And that worked out quite well. I was the first, we had the MD, myself, and then we scaled it up to, I think, roughly 10 salespeople. Then was hired by another company to repeat the success. And at one point, I was like, look, if I'm able to do it as an employee, I might as well just do it as somebody on my own account because I saw that there's an opportunity in the market. And that's how it all got started, basically.
Okay, very cool. What were you doing at the when you were an IT consultant? Were you in sales? Were you the consultant? What does that look like?
No, I was actually in consulting itself. So I was actually looking at
Very
the
cool.
IT systems, how essentially the banks in that case, insurances, they can align their tech towards their future goals, to how they want to service their customers, because that's an industry, and that's the industry I'm also focusing on, that's traditionally very much behind in technology, not
Yep.
because they choose, but rather because they're doomed to. Because once you start running a bank, you can't just push the stop button and renew.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a challenge in itself.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That makes perfect sense. Walk me through like the mentality around switching from a job where you know where your next paycheck's coming from, it's consistent, it's predictable, to starting your own company where uncertainty lies around every corner. Walk me through
Yeah,
how you had to navigate that.
yeah. I think, to be honest, I was never someone who was very, I was never very security driven. Like being safe, being secure was never something that I was thriving for necessarily. But I'm not gonna lie if I say that I felt super comfortable at the beginning. But I had a first gig lined up very quickly from my network, and that kind of gave me a little bit of a head start. So that made it a bit easy. But then, funny enough, I tanked from there because there was a bit of a, I don't know if you remember, maybe there was the FTX crisis, so a crypto crisis that sent fintech, which is the target industry that I target, really down the drain. And there was no money in the market. And so no one wanted to hire me. And I'm
Crazy.
like, damn. So that was rough. And it was a learning curve. In the beginning, you panic a little bit when,
Yeah.
waters are getting rough, but then humans are good at adapting, right? After you've been
Yeah.
through that the first time, you get used to it.
So walk us through just to give us a little bit more context. Who's your ICP? It sounds like it's just fintechs, but if there's anybody else, please add to it and SaaS as well. Who's
Sure,
your
sure.
ICP and then
So,
what is the core offering?
yeah, okay, sure. Happy to do that. So, my ICP essentially is early stage, sorry, SaaS and fintech companies. Most of the time, they either have an angel invest, they have a seed or pre-seed round, or are even bootstrapped. And everything's B2B, right? I don't touch B2C. It's not my area of expertise.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it has to be a rather complex product, right? So if it's a very simple one-off kind of product, that's not my area of expertise. So where I'm very good at, I understand complex buying decision processes and complex selling decision processes, or selling processes in that sense. And I actually niched down a bit. So you mentioned Growth Base, which is the old branding name. At the beginning, you announced as Growth Base, which was the old brand. And then I realized one very important milestones for every startup is reaching the first million in annual revenue, right? So the first million ARR. Hence the rebranding to crack 1M, because that's this milestone, this North Star metrics that every company always wants to go. And that's specifically the value proposition. So I help founders of B2B SaaS and FinTech companies to scale beyond their first million and make them ready to then go and really create ideally an infinitively scalable sales system, hire 5, 6, 7 closes, whatever, and really go as far as they want to go. But this first 1 million is always really rough. And that's exactly what I help the founders with.
Yeah. Powerful. Very cool. And it's niched down to B2B, FinTech, and SaaS early stage startups. Now,
most of them are early stage, but some of them have been around for quite a while that just can't go past that 1 million. But yeah,
cool. So let's say I have a client in front of you. Let's say I'm listening to this, right? And I'm one of these companies and I'm intrigued in this. What does a client journey look like? What does a client engagement look like from start to finish with us working together? What are really the deliverables?
Okay. That usually, let's say usually, right? Most, and that's a prerequisite, I think, for those clients. Most clients have been burned already. So they got the bloody nose, right? Because they started on their own and then they did classical founder mistakes like hiring junior people or hiring people, sellers that are made for plug and play kind of positions where they already have a playbook. And they tried certain things that doesn't really work.
Yeah.
And usually they get in touch with me and people always fall back to default they know. So when they talk to me, say, hey, can you sell for me? That's not going to do it because you don't have the underlying groundwork. So what we're going to build is we're going to build a system that helps you scale your sales. We're going to build a messaging. We're going to prove your message market fit. We mutually help you find the product market fit. We're going to create a machine that generates leads for you. That might then involve an agency. So we need to find the message. We need to create a buyer's journey, and we need to build a playbook. And usually they don't even have CRMs or not a proper CRM. They don't really do things like personal branding. So this is not what I do for them, but I advise them, right? So what they really get from me is the whole underlying system where it comes from chaotic founder-led sales to a structured playbook where they usually go, okay, now things fall in place. Now it's like a clockwork. Now it works. And then when I hover off, let's say after 12 months, I help them hire sellers. And then when I go off, here's your playbook. That's the machine that works. We generated clients. You have your product market fit. You know how to generate leads. And now I can hire people and go wherever you want to go.
Got it. Got it. So you're building them the systems internally, and then that way they can go run with it. And you mentioned 12 months. Is it typically a 12-month engagement?
It is typically 12 months engagement. The reason being, people have the tendency to always look for quick solutions, but the reality is in sales, and especially in complex sales scenarios, you never have a quick solution. It always takes a while. Building systems needs time, especially when you're a company that potentially has an innovative product because you're a startup. There is certain playbooks, but sometimes you have to educate your clients first. So everything takes a bit longer. By giving an example, I've worked with companies sometimes for 18 months or longer because I also I help the founders close their first deals and some deals just take a longer time to close.
Yeah. And it's also, you want to be building a solid foundation when it comes to these things. So
100%.
1 month, 2 month, 3 months is probably not going to be building that foundation. So the 12 to 18 months makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
I'm super curious from your perspective. This is something we talk about a lot on this podcast, is the idea of scalability around fulfillment models and making sure that the fulfillment models that we're putting in place are in alignment with how big we want to take the company, just to not run into any capacity issues, to not run into any scalability issues. So for you, it sounds, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you can only take on so many clients.
Exactly.
Obviously, your time is heavily involved. So walk me through how you think about that when it comes to scalability of this model, and if that's even something that you think about.
That's obviously right. Everyone who runs a business thinks about scalability. I, for myself, found myself to be looking at that topic and be like, okay, where is my glass ceiling, right? Where's my ceiling that I could potentially scale more, but there's a certain implied ceiling. And I realized there is two ways of going beyond that. It's either hire people, which I decided I don't want to do.
Mm,
And the second one is do a done with you rather than a done for you, which right now is a hybrid. It's a done with you
yeah.
and done for you.
Mm,
But I'm at the stage where I don't want to do it because I decided or I realized the people that I want to work with, they are often very technical people. And they do need don't need someone to just tell them, hey, do this, do that. They need someone to really hold their hand, to guide them, to also deliver. And I will not rule it out that eventually I might move to a system where I will do done with you rather than done for you.
yeah.
But at the moment, I don't do it. And if I have things that I cannot cover, I have a very dense network, let's say, of agencies or freelancers that I use to essentially leverage or provide additional services in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also one of those things where you cross that bridge when you get there, right?
Yeah,
I
100%.
feel I
That's
worried
awesome.
about it right now, especially if you're not in that mode. Are you at capacity right now, or do you still have the ability to take on more clients?
I think right now I'm probably could take on more clients, but I've been hovering off from a very intense project. And right now I'm enjoying not being at capacity and
Yeah.
taking a bit off.
Yeah, yeah.
In a 1 or 2 months, I'll probably be looking at it at a different angle, but right now I'm quite happy of where I am right now.
Yeah, enjoying the weather in Thailand, enjoying the summer.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough.
Exactly.
Not a bad life to live, that's for sure.
100%. Yes.
Let's shift a little bit to the back end of the business. When it comes to lead generation and bringing on more clients for your company, what does that
Mhm.
process look like for you?
I would say, based on the fact that the business I am is very high trust, right? Founders need trust, and there is a lot of bad apples. There has been a very strong push towards agency businesses because it's a very low barrier, low entry barrier business. So there's a lot of bad apples out there, and I know plenty of stories of founders who have been working with bad agencies. They've been scammed, or the people overpromised, overcharged, whatnot. So I believe my strongest channel is actually content, social media content, because it creates a relationship
Yeah,
with my audience. I'm very active on social media. That works quite well. Then obviously, like probably everyone in my position, I really much feed off my network. But it's a very high trust thing. I also do outreach. There is outbound involved, but very selective, if it makes sense. I do not do spray and pray. It's really, I see a company, I read something, I might have a link to the founder somehow, and then I reach out only if it really makes sense. Because I also know what I do is very niche down. And especially given the fact that my target market is mainly Europe, right now targeting some accounts in Asia, but the
got it.
European ecosystem is also a lot smaller than, let's say, North America, right?
Yeah. So I guess you like knowing people in there allow like this person knows this person, which this person knows that person. Is that what you mean when it comes to Europe is much smaller? It's easier to know people?
Yes, it's easy to know people, and you're also, let's say, limited, right? Like the US, for instance, or let's say North America, obviously you're in Canada right now, but I guess the markets are somewhat related. I just assume, right? I know very little about Canada, but I guess there's a certain connection, right? Just the
Yeah,
sheer, yeah, just the sheer, you have two
100%.
huge market if you combine them that are English speaking, right? In Europe, you have, yeah, 320 million people, but every country speaks a different language. You have Germany, Austria, Switzerland speaking German, the rest Spanish, French, Danish, whatnot.
Yeah.
So there is a inherent limitation to the scalability of businesses, which also then, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense because
Yeah.
population is a huge factor of things, right?
Yes.
So when you say social media content, can you walk us through a little bit through that strategy?
Yes, look, I think we had the first touch through LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is a very powerful channel, right? I structure my LinkedIn content to really mirror what I hear when I talk to clients. I listen, right? So when I have when I have talks to clients or prospects, or I'm at events where I meet people, I also meet people, I listen what they tell me and I listen to their pains, because every objection, every pain is content. If you have a solution for it, you can address it. Because
Yeah.
obviously, let's say I talk to a founder and they tell me, "You have problem ABC," then probability is that a lot of other founders have it too. And then I convert this into social media content. And by addressing that pain, but usually sometimes get DMs of like, hey, look, that sounds very familiar. Maybe we should talk. Or sometimes also very random. People just book a
Yeah.
slot. I have a link on my LinkedIn. Out of the sun, I get a call, and then there's a person that knows me through LinkedIn. Never
Yeah.
saw them before, but people read.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sure. Powerful. What have you found to be the most effective way of consistently, predictably bringing in leads?
I think that would be being very consistent with my content on social media. It is something that I've been doing for quite a while. It is can be painful at times because you really need to you don't want to do bad content, right? But you have to be out there as a solopreneur that I consider myself. It's really content, it is events, it is my network and outreach. Funny enough, for me, I don't use it that much, but funny enough, I would tell people if you have a SaaS product, outreach is where the money is,
Mm.
right? But I think we have to very separate service-based business and productized business is two very different angles in terms of sales. But yeah,
Yeah.
so those three channels, content, network, and events, that has
Yeah.
been very consistent for me,
I
actually.
appreciate you breaking that down. On the topic of sales, what does your sales process look like for your service-based company?
You could elaborate on that. What specifically do you
So
mean?
let's say a lead does come in and they're looking to inquire about your services at crack1m.io. What are the steps that they go through in the funnel for them to become a client?
Mhm. Yet again, it's a very intimate business. They're usually very small businesses driven by their founders and the co-founders. So it's usually small teams. So what I always do is I just listen. I talk to the people. I listen. Hey, what are your challenges, right? What are your challenges? What are you struggling with? Trying to really listen and understand, do a thorough discovery as I would do it when I sell SaaS, right?
Mm.
And I'm very diligent about that because I also realized in the beginning I've not been very diligent about it. Everyone, when you start your business, you also work with clients who are not necessarily fit, right? So I filter that out. And then usually I go right in and see, look, this and this is what I would do about it. And this is how I address those issues, right? And because I'm very niche down to this fintech area, I usually always have references, right? I can tell them, hey, look, you have this issue. I've solved it here. I solved it there. So people see, okay, that guy knows what he's talking about, which I, as a matter of fact, do know. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who don't. But because
Yeah.
I'm so niche down, I really much have seen most things already, seen most issues a couple of times, and I found answers for them already. And then it's usually really building a relationship.
Yeah.
The first step usually is that I say, look, don't take my word for it. What we can do is really do a workshop where we create a very low risk offer, which I charge 1,500 euros for. So then really completely take their entire sales journey where they are apart. We look at all the different angles, we look at all the different issues, and then I give them very detailed step-by-step instructions. You can do this and this. And
Yeah.
usually they say, that sounds very good, but now I need someone to actually execute it for me. And
Yeah.
that's usually where it works very well because it gives a low offer entry. I create a lot of value for that, and then they see that I can deliver on that. That how it
That's
usually
smart.
goes.
Okay, so the 1,500 is basically like a playbook. They can go and they can implement it themselves. But if they want somebody to come
Exactly.
and help them implement, that's where you can upsell and you have the higher ticket thing. Very cool. I like that model a lot. I'm super curious because you mentioned you're a solopreneur and you're not really looking to hire that much and really build out a team. What's your vision over the next 12 months? What's your main goal for the company?
My main goal. I told you I had this rebranding, right? Where I really niche down also my value proposition because I did a lot of different things in the beginning, some sales consulting here, some coaching there, some head of sales interim here. So it was not very, I did everything a little bit. And so now I put this all together in one package. And my vision is to nail this, to really create this standardized product where I can 100% deliver on that product. And I want to become really good at that.
Yeah.
My idea is to have at least 5 more clients this year. I'm on route for that. I think I'll manage. And actually, and that's something that I'm very keen on doing, I want to continue only doing stuff that's fun for me because I love sales. I love my job. But as I guess you're in sales as well, right? Sales can be annoying if you have to deal with stuff that is is not really a match for you or your skill set. And
Mm,
meanwhile, I know myself and my skill set very well, and I know where I can deliver value, and I want to niche down on that and double down on that and do stuff that's fun for me. Make my clients successful. And in the process, you always make best money if you make people money. That's
yeah,
the very equal equation.
100%. When you say you want to be doing things that's fun for you, what are the things that you want to avoid?
What I want to avoid is 100% people who are not on board with the reality of sales. So
Mm,
if you talk to some startup founders, or not startup founders, generally people, I feel people often do not understand the importance of sales, and so they treat it as a side gig. Most people don't, and that's what I said previously. Most of my clients, they got their bloody nose previously,
yep.
and that's why they know how important the value is. But every now and then, and I think maybe that's also a European thing. Europeans are very product-driven people. They still have this old belief like a great product will just sell itself, which in today's world is just not true, especially in the beginning. No one knows you, your product doesn't matter, distribution matters. And what I want to avoid is people who have no appreciation for that. So I need the buy-in
Mm,
of my clients. I need them to be 100% on board so that they are committed and I'm committed, and then it works well. So 100% committed clients that are all in for it, and avoid people that are not. That's, I
yeah.
think, is something that I'm really big on.
Yeah, I think that's a great benefit and a great pro of having a lean team is that you can
Yeah,
easily pick and choose
sure.
instead of feeling like, hey, I have all this overhead and I need to bring on X number of clients per month, regardless of if they fit exactly your ideal profile or not. So that's a great benefit for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Walk
That's
me
what I want to
through,
do.
what do you feel like is the biggest challenge you're facing right now as the founder?
I think the biggest challenge, there's a couple. I think the biggest challenge is you have to educate people a lot. You have to educate people a lot about the need for building systems. Very often, sales, when I speak to founders, very often they believe, hey, look, sales is we're just going to hire an intern and let them write some cold emails and off we go. Right. And then
Wow.
I always come and be like, hey, look, okay, would you hire an intern as your head of product? You wouldn't. Why would you hire one as a head of sales? Kind of
Yeah.
head of sales, right? And there has to be a lot of education has to be done. Yet again, I think in North America, there's a reason North American companies generally are globally extremely successful because you don't look at it from a product point of view, you look at it from a distribution point of view, because distribution first, product later.
Yeah.
In the broad sense, you can't have a
Generally,
trashy product, right? And you have to put in a lot of education. But once people got it, then they're like, okay, then they're hooked.
yeah.
I think that's number one. Number two is the economic outlook right now, because you
Mm,
could see startups are more and more cautious about their spending because they know it's
yeah.
in an unstable economic situation. VC money is not that plenty there.
Yeah.
So you really have to 100% focus on making clear what the value is. Then people will buy. But let's
Yep.
say it's not that easy anymore. People are not just going to buy on a fling. They really want to see the
Mm,
value and they really think about their spending positions. But that's,
yeah.
I would say, is a common challenge in an economic environment
Yeah,
like that.
for sure. A lot of people are going through that right now. Trust me, you're not the only one. I've
Yeah.
heard many founders say that this last week, even, which is funny enough. I'm curious, if you could start from scratch and you were starting over again, right? Everything was taken away from you, your
Mhm.
network, your clients, your reputation, all those things. But you had all the lessons that you've learned thus far. What would be one piece of advice like you would tell yourself when you're starting over again to make sure that you can succeed, you can get back to where you were ASAP?
To me personally, I believe that's an interesting question. I would say you can write content and you can do, I don't know, you could try to build strategy, do content, but the only thing that's really going to drive revenue is talk to people, go to events,
Yeah.
write cold emails, write emails, call people. because, and hands down, I do most of my work remote, but I'm a big in-person guy, right?
Yeah.
I go to events as often as I can. I don't say you have to be in the office all the time, but meeting people, speaking to people, listening to people, that's where the value is. Everything else is just, you can do it later, but that will be
Yeah.
my go-to strategy.
100%. I love that. Christoph, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Probably LinkedIn. Please DM me on LinkedIn. That would be really good. And yeah, that's the easiest way. Spend a lot of my time on there. It's my channel number one.
There you go. Awesome. So
Perfect.
thank you so much for your time, brother. This was a great
Thank you, Ammar.
conversation. So that
Likewise.
wrapped up another insightful episode of Founders Future. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're a business owner and you're looking to scale and enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, keep on climbing.